Yo guys, how are you all doing? Welcome back to Rule of Two Review. Today, we have to talk about this weird Final Fantasy 15 Nintendo Switch port situation. So I'm sure a lot of you already know what this whole situation and story is about, but for a little bit of context, just in case someone maybe isn't quite up to date, a couple of days ago, there was a Twitch stream happening, and at this Twitch stream, live on stage, were some folks who work for Square Enix, who worked on Final Fantasy 15, and they were discussing Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition, which is this upcoming mobile version of Final Fantasy 15 that honestly until this week I had no idea even existed. And it's pretty neat, to be fair. It is literally the identical full humongous Final Fantasy 15 experience, only using a completely different graphic and art style. They're chibi characters, they're little cutesy, big-headed sort of versions of all the characters from the game. And of course, it features kind of a more mobile and touchscreen-friendly playstyle that is meant for mobile phones. And through this Twitch stream, they were discussing future plans for the game, and then they made a quote that hinted very heavily at something surrounding Final Fantasy 15 for the Nintendo Switch. So when speaking about the future Final Fantasy 15 and/or the Pocket Edition, this is what they had to say verbatim on stage. You asked the question, what other things do we have planned in the future? We can't give you any complete, solid details right at the moment, but for our policy writers, we very much do want to move out and do as much as we can with the game, with the franchise. There's another certain console out there that people may be thinking of. Sounds a little bit like you guys. Your name, Twitch. I think we'll just leave it there. And through that, considering the fact that they were mostly detailing and showing off the Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition, they were discussing if the Pocket Edition is and/or would be coming to the Nintendo Switch, because obviously that console he was talking about that rhymes with Twitch is the Nintendo Switch. And they went on to say this about Final Fantasy Pocket Edition on the Nintendo Switch. There is certainly a chance, it's certainly not zero. Obviously, we'd have to think about what the meaning and what the significance of bringing this to Switch would be. You know, whether people would want to play it and whether it would be the right thing to do for our team. So, there you go. That's kind of some of the base details about what happened. Folks from Square who work on Final Fantasy 15, the Pocket Edition of Final Fantasy 15, were talking about the game, the upcoming release, and then of course touched on the fact that they like the Switch, they're releasing stuff upcoming for the Switch, they're not ready to say what it is, and then they very heavily hint that Final Fantasy 15 in some form could be coming to the Switch, and then beyond that, they even more heavily hint that it likely or very possibly could be the Pocket Edition. Now, this is a fairly big deal, and it's caused quite the conversation online. I've been paying attention to it because I thought that this was all very interesting to see play out and to kind of learn the details of. It seems as of right now, Square is very interested in bringing Final Fantasy or some form of Final Fantasy 15 to the Nintendo Switch. And that is, in and of itself, very exciting and super good news. When I first heard that, before I really started to dive in and understand the details of the whole Pocket thing, I was like, oh my gosh, that's great news. A, because it's a game I really wanted to play and missed, and B, because it would be a fantastic game for so many reasons to have come to the Switch. But of course, then we get the information about it possibly being the Pocket Edition and all of the stuff that you obviously know, and then I just went over. So I wanted to talk about my feelings and what I think we can expect from this. At the end of the day, there is really no interest for me in playing the Pocket Edition of this game. I am interested in playing Final Fantasy 15, and I am beyond interested in playing it on the Nintendo Switch. There is, like I was saying a second ago, so many reasons why bringing the full, complete version of that game to the Switch would be a great thing. It would be great for the Nintendo audience. It would be great for the Switch to see a game like this coming. It would be great to show proper third-party support. It would be great because it would show the possible power and the overall graphical capability of the Switch to be able to run such a crazy involved game like Final Fantasy 15, the actual version, even if it's scaled down, to still have the same version that the PC, Xbox One, and PS4 have would be very significant and a huge deal and extremely exciting. I think it could showcase a lot of what is really happening under the hood for the Switch. But to have it be this Pocket Edition doesn't feel so great, doesn't feel so exciting. And there are people on all sides of the fence. Most people seem to very much agree with me and not have any interest in playing the Pocket Edition of this game on the Switch. There are some people who fully support the idea. Some people like the art style. Some people feel like, hey, it's still the same game regardless, and that would still be a good thing. If the game itself is good, the gameplay should matter the most. And that is true. So I need to give absolute credit to the truth of that statement, because at the end of the day, the argument could exist that having the solid and fun gameplay and story of Final Fantasy 15 in any way represented on the Switch should be considered a good thing. And yes, that is true. But that doesn't really take away the fact that there are still many levels of problems with the Pocket Edition being the version of the game that we would get as opposed to the full version. I think the biggest thing for me, of all the things that I thought about, and I was like jotting down notes, and I was like, God, this is a bad thing, this is a bad thing, this is a bad thing. To me, what it squarely centers around, again, in my opinion only, not, you guys don't have to agree with this is just me and my opinion. To me, it centers around the fact that I think it would send a bad message to the Nintendo gamer, to the wider gaming audience, and to fellow developers, for this game to be the Pocket Edition and not the full version. When you start to look at what the Switch is supposed to do, and there's a lot of people who talked about this. OJ from Player Essence made a great video that really kind of breaks down some of why I think that there could be problems with bringing the Pocket Edition to the Switch, and I agreed with like almost everything he said in this video. I highly recommend you watch it. I'll try to remember to link it down below. But one of the things is, when you look at what the Switch represents and why it was an exciting console when it was first revealed, and why it's been so exciting since it's released, is the promise of console experiences on the go. Not only on your TV, on a Nintendo console, but also on the go. We don't want to be playing, you know, lame retro side-scrolling versions of Splatoon or Breath of the Wild. What's exciting about those games is the fact that these are like the next-gen, amazing, humongous, epic, beautiful console experience games that also can be picked right off of the dock, and then it's in your hand and you can go anywhere on the planet and play these games. And the Pocket Edition of Final Fantasy 15 doesn't represent the console experience of the game. Obviously, one of the huge things we're talking about is simply the graphics and the visual and art style. And I will freely admit to you guys right now, I've always been somebody who champions the idea that graphics aren't the most important thing to me, and I don't really weigh them when it comes to determining if a game is good or bad. And that's true, and that is exactly who I am. But I think because of the difference of this scenario, it's not that I want this version of Final Fantasy 15 just to see the good graphics, although that would be great to see on the Switch, like I said. It's not about just having the good graphics, it's about sending the message that your console experiences, the games that are on console parity with the competition, PS4 and Xbox One and PC, are going to be possible on the Switch. And so to take this mobile version that really is meant for mobile phones, not for a mobile console that's also meant to be a home console, it doesn't quite send the right message, and I think it muddies the water, and I think it could possibly be saying to the rest of the industry, even though I don't think this would be true, I think the perception would start to be, oh yeah, the Switch, that's that dumb kiddie system that only gets mobile cell phone games. I mean, it didn't even get Final Fantasy 15, it got the mobile version of Final Fantasy. And again, those of us that are Nintendo fans and know and understand and own the Switch know that that wouldn't really be true, but I think that we have to understand the potential damage to the perception it would bring to release as high profile of a game as Final Fantasy 15 with this Pocket Edition on the Switch. And it's like the Pocket Edition is already going to be taken mobile in people's pockets with their cell phones and tablets. So what's the other benefit? Why would people pass on the mobile version to buy a $300 Switch and play the game on the Switch? Like, they kind of chew into the same market, and it doesn't really take advantage of what the Switch is supposed to be able to do. In my opinion, again, this is just me, if they can't really bring the final version of the game over to the Switch for whatever reason, if it's the graphics and the power, then that would be a shame, but so be it. It's like, don't do it. Like, just don't do it. When it comes to the art style too, let me go back to this for a minute. If the game in and of itself was developed and released as this Pocket Edition and used this chibi art style, even though I hate the chibi art style, if the game was always made this way, it would be a totally different thing. It'd be like, well, then they're just bringing the same version of Final Fantasy 15 that existed over to the Switch. That would be a good thing. But bringing this version that isn't the same version the PlayStation and Xbox and PC got, I think is just super, super negative. I mean, look at Resident Evil Revelations, for example. We're getting that released sometime by the end of the year. A great game. I love Revelations. That game's also getting ported over to the Xbox One and PS4. Imagine if the version of Revelations that was ported over to the Switch was, I don't even know how, some retro, totally different version. What if it was using a different art style and chibi versions of those characters in Resident Evil as opposed to the version coming to the PS4 and Xbox One? We would be up in arms, and rightfully so. that suddenly starts to show you're not putting the right time into the Switch version. You're not showing like respect for the Switch gamer or for the Nintendo audience or for Nintendo as a company or even the Switch as a console. Like, I get it, man. It's not as powerful as the competition, but we know it can do a lot more than just this stupid chibi mobile version of Final Fantasy. So let's get to the last point of this, after my little rant about why I don't really want the Pocket Edition of this game on the Switch. What will we see? If in fact there's any truth to this. To be fair, it has not been confirmed anything Final Fantasy is coming to the Switch yet. It's obviously likely, and it's obviously going to happen in some capacity, but we don't truly know that it's coming yet. That being said, since we probably can expect Final Fantasy 15 or some Final Fantasy game to come, what is it we're going to see? Honestly, you guys, I'm of the mind that if they're bringing Final Fantasy 15 to the Switch, it's going to be this Pocket Edition. I think that's what we need to all brace ourselves for and expect to see released. And like I said, you know, it might sell okay. It might even review okay. And those are good things. And if the game is good, and if it does, you know, moderately well in terms of sales, I'll be happy. Like, I will be happy to see those things. I only want those things to happen. But I think that some of the damage will have been done as far as saying this is what the Switch gets instead of the actual versions of the actual games. I mean, I think there's mostly nothing but bad stuff happening there. I hope to be wrong here. I hope that we see the actual... I mean, just imagine. Let's pretend you're somebody who's, like, totally cool with this chibi version of the game. Like, Terminator Juice, who I used to do the podcast with. We were talking on Twitter a little bit today. He's totally cool with this chibi version. And that's great if you're into it and whatever. Like, but let's just say you're one of those people that is that way. That feels like, hey, this is fine. It's just a game. It is whatever. How would you actually feel if they also brought the actual version, the same version the Xbox and PlayStation got, sure, with some tweaks to the graphics, maybe less polygon and lighting and particle effects, whatever, but if they got ultimately that same version and engine and graphical style running on the Switch, how much more exciting would that suddenly be? It would be so crazy cool, even if you don't want to play the game, because it's like, look at this. This is just another feather in Nintendo's hat to say, hey, we can get the right kind of third-party support, the right kind of third-party titles, and our system might be a little bit more powerful than some of the naysayers might think, because Final Fantasy 15, for everything you can say about it, is a beautiful game, very impressive visually, and it would be nothing but a good thing if that version came to the Switch, whereas there would be a lot of downsides to the Pocket Edition, which, again, in wrapping this up, I'm bracing myself for the worst case scenario here just because of the way these quotes played out, not because of my wishes and thoughts and all these things. The way it all played out on stage, if you watch the stream of it, you'll see it as well. It seems like they're talking about the Pocket Edition, and I almost feel like it would be too good to be true to see the actual version of Final Fantasy 15 come over to the Switch, you know? And if that happens, it's not going to be the be-all, end-all. It's not going to, like, doom the Switch all of a sudden, you know? I'm not trying to spin that narrative, but it will be disappointing, and I think that it will do a little bit of damage that Nintendo will have to work to make up the ground of in the coming, you know, months and year after the game would end up launching and releasing. So it'll be very interesting to see. I would love to see the regular version come, man. So what do you guys think? What do you feel about the quotes, the live stream, what's happening, Final Fantasy 15 as a game? Do you want to see it on the Switch? How do you feel about it possibly being the Pocket Edition? Are you totally on board with the Pocket Edition, or are you more like me and a lot of other people who would be very disappointed to see that? Lots of different angles to come at this from, as per usual. Those are my favorite kind of topics to talk about, but pretty big deal. So share your thoughts about this below. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule 2 Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.